Welcome back, everyone. My name is Ole Lund Hansen. I'm the Chief of Global Operations at the UN Global Compact. I hope everyone has enjoyed the Global Impact Forum so far today. I thought it was really enlightening to hear directly from the heads of states in the General Assembly a bit earlier, hearing about, progress against the 2030 agenda and also about COVID recovery around the world. Making it, of course, clear that for the SDGs to be a reality, there's still a lot of work to be done, still a lot of solutions that needs to be developed. So against that backdrop, it was then very exciting just before to hear from the latest generation of SDG pioneers, incredible business leaders who are all doing something very extraordinary to advance the global goals. So this has all in all been a perfect introduction to our next session, which is called Local Solutions Live SDG Ambition. In this session, we will explore really the need for businesses to take more ambitious action on the Sustainable Development Goals and talk about some of the concrete steps that companies can take to set more ambitious goals and targets and then more fully integrate these Sustainable Development Goals into the core of their business. These practices are essentially what we call SDG ambition, and we look forward to sharing this with you. So now we'll first hear from some of our collaborators and colleagues in bringing this SDG ambition to life. They are Peter Lacey, who's the Chief Responsibility Officer and the Global Sustainability Services Lead at Accenture. We have Vivek Bapat, who's the Senior Vice President for Purpose and Sustainability Marketing at SAP. We have Gayle Schueller, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer at 3M. We have our colleague Rachel Panaino, who is the Executive Director of the Global Compact Network in the UAE. And finally, we have Iris van der Veken, who is the Executive Director of the Responsible Jewellry Council. After this exciting panel, we will then hear from some of the participants of our SDG Ambition Accelerator, some of the companies that have participated in this program through our local networks around the world. Now, with this bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's discuss now a bit more what we mean when we say SDG ambition. So we all know that as a global society, we made a commitment to deliver the SDGs by 2030. But it's also increasingly clear that we're falling behind. We're currently not delivering on that commitment. We have 700 million people still living in poverty. We have deforestation rates that are higher than they were in 2014. We're clearly, obviously, not on track to deliver on the 1.5 scenario on climate change. And it's estimated that it'll take another 200 years at least to close the economic gender gap unless we accelerate the pace. These statistics are really mirrored also when you look specifically at business and sustainability. There's a critical gap between the action that businesses are taking right now and the global and societal needs defined by the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, we see that only 39% of the companies, even when they make their own assessments, think that they have goals and targets that are sufficiently ambitious, that are science-based, or that align with societal needs. So we really need companies everywhere to move from this more incremental action where you may benchmark against competitors or against your own past performance and then try and move a little bit above and beyond that. We need to move where leading companies are going, namely to more transformative action where you start defining a level of ambition for your company that really mirrors what is required in society to deliver on the SDGs. The good news is that nearly 80% of CEOs think that there's more of a need to integrate sustainability into their businesses today. And 3 out of 4 of these CEOs expect the pressure to act on sustainability to significantly increase over the next 3 years. What we're hearing at the same time is that many businesses around the world still struggle to find the right approach, still struggle really to find the right solutions for their business. We see that less than half of the businesses participating in the Global Compact report that they're embedding the Sustainable Development Goals into their core business, and actually only 37% report that they're redesigning business models as a result of that. So we think this is where the SDG Ambition Accelerator may help. Whether you're looking for knowledge or insight, tools, or even an understanding about the technologies needed, the UN Global Compact's SDG Ambition Accelerator is designed to help companies take more ambitious and more strategic action on the SDGs. So with this intro, now pleased to hand over to our first exciting panelists.
Today, company leaders are more aware than ever of the importance of sustainability, yet many are still grappling with how to translate these concerns into business action. Accenture has found opportunities in this uncertainty, taking the steps to implement lasting sustainability solutions. And we're excited to continue our partnership with the UN Global Compact, with SAP, with 3M, with hundreds of businesses around the world to help companies do the same. The SDG Ambition Accelerator is a 6-month program where we guide companies through how to set ambitious targets in the form of benchmarks aligned with the SDGs, to develop an integrated approach and plan, and to explore how to leverage innovative and emerging technologies to take concrete action. The SDGs are the best blueprint we have to achieve a more sustainable future for all. They are also, in my view, and you can see them here behind me, they are also probably the best codified, written out innovation roadmap for businesses wanting to combine the power of sustainability with technology and to deliver the new DNA of competitiveness. New markets, new products, new services, new abilities to manage your business across environmental, social, and governance issues that reduce cost and risk and build intangible assets, relationships, and reputation with stakeholders. The SDG Ambition Accelerator is an incredible opportunity for businesses, both large and small, to act on these goals through SDG Ambition benchmarks that are absolutely aligned with business objectives. We believe, Accenture believes, I believe wholeheartedly that making sustainability a top priority is not only the right thing to do, but also that it's the most powerful force of change in our generation and a way to future-proof your business. We're thrilled to be gearing up to support the delivery of the next round of SDG Ambition, and we encourage all of you to sign up today. Be a bold leader, raise your ambition, make a contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals, and improve the competitiveness of your business.
As a global leader in business technology and solutions, serving over 400,000 customers, we are privileged to work with and learn from businesses of all sizes across 25 different industries in over 180 countries. Therefore, we understand the unique challenges and opportunities confronting business leaders in achieving their specific global sustainability ambitions. What we've learned is that it's no longer about looking at sustainability as a destination, rather sustainability is a journey. And the question is no longer about why businesses should embrace sustainability. It's much more about how they can embed sustainability into the core of their operations and extend it across their business network of suppliers, of consumers, investors, and partners. The SDG Ambition Accelerator helps solve this problem. It helps business leaders jumpstart their initiatives by providing a clear blueprint and step-by-step guide on how to use technology as the catalyst to deliver to the speed and scale that is necessary to move from ambition into action. At SAP, we are excited to be one of the founding patrons of the UN Global Compact on SDG ambition in delivering the tools, the technologies, and the partnerships to offer complete solutions to help businesses effect change. We have a bold vision for a sustainable future at SAP. We envision a world of zero waste, zero emissions, and zero inequality. I encourage all of you to create your own bold vision by taking part in the SDG Ambition Accelerator and becoming part of this iconic movement.
Being a participant in the United Nations Global Compact since 2014 has consistently affirmed and strengthened 3M's drive to advance the Sustainable Development Goals as well as the UNGC's 10 principles. In September 2020, we became a patron sponsor of the SDG Ambition to help empower other companies and organizations work towards a more sustainable future. 3M has already integrated SDGs into our goals and business strategies across the company, including in healthcare, transportation safety, renewable energy, and personal safety, to name a few. We've seen firsthand how beneficial it is to partner with customers, peers, and broader society to advance the SDGs. So we wanted to extend and amplify this positive impact with the SDG Ambition Accelerator program. Teams from 3M Canada and Poland participated in the last round of this program, and they shared very positive feedback, along with some key takeaways. First, the principles and benchmarks provide a strong framework for leaders to build pathways, identify pain points, and drive key actions to reach stretch goals. The team shared that this would be a beneficial process for companies just starting in this space, but that it was also a helpful exercise for experienced actors to consider their ambitions from new perspectives. Secondly, they found the program encourages more aspirational and ambitious goals while also giving leaders a structured approach to successfully implement and communicate new goals to their teams. Finally, they said it was a great opportunity to learn about challenges and best practices from a diverse set of participants from around the world who operate in a variety of industries and markets. The networking and solution sharing within the program was extremely beneficial and will continue to add value moving forward.
Here in the UAE, we were excited to be one of 36 local networks running the SDG Ambition Accelerator to participants locally. In the first round, local networks helped guide companies from ambitious goal setting to concrete planning, challenging them to take actions and implement sustainable goals into their business plans. By delivering this accelerator at a local level, we were able to customize the program and add relevant regional expertise from our dedicated local facilitators. For the second round, we're really excited to be teaming up with networks in both Lebanon and Saudi Arabia to offer a more regional lens on the need to take ambitious action to achieve the SDGs. The conversations are contextualized to focus on the challenges most present in our countries' companies, while still offering access to global learning and networking opportunities. The immediate action we saw from our participants following completion of the program was absolutely inspiring, and we cannot wait to continue our conversations with local participants in round 2 in the coming months.
The 2030 agenda is about leaving no one behind. And if we want to deliver the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we really need to be ambitious and work together to drive that positive change forward. We need to engage with civil society, with businesses, with academic institutions, with consumers to really understand, what matters and how can we drive that impact. At the Responsible Jewelry Council, we take the commitment to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals very seriously. we have initiated a roadmap 2030 where we're really on a journey with our 1,500 members across the global jewelry and watch industry to deliver that positive impact. And that is not an easy journey. It's going to be a process of continuous improvement and learning. But I think it's important to start the journey and to accelerate efforts. And we know the consumer cares because this is also the decade of trust and transparency. So this is my call to action. I'm asking all industries to work closely together with us in partnership to really drive that transformational change on the ground. I'm counting on you.
So in June, we celebrated that the first group of 600 companies had concluded their participation in the SDG Ambition Accelerator, participating through our local network and with support from local facilitators and experts from Accenture. The feedback was really overwhelmingly positive, with more than a 90% satisfaction rate from the participating companies. Better yet, more importantly, 87% of the participants told us that the accelerator had helped them identify new ways for their companies to take action on the SDGs. So there are gaps that exist clearly between ambition and action, but we have seen with this accelerator that it is possible also to bridge this gap. Now, over the last 2 months, some of our Global Compact networks have been hosting events featuring some of the companies that are already working to set ambitious goals after taking part in the accelerator. Now, let's tune in to hear from some of those companies that have participated and that are now working in a new way. So first, let's go to the United Kingdom, where we have Steve Kenzie, the Executive Director of the network, leading a dynamic panel with Ty Jones, who's the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility and Engagement at DWF Law, and Victoria Hughes, who's the Business Responsibility Director of Vinci.
But now we're going to talk with Ty and Victoria about the SDG Ambition Program, representing 2 companies that are taking on these responsibilities, demonstrating the kind of ambition that we want to hear about. Just to get us going, because I'm going to be potentially controversial here, but I'm going to say that I think neither of your companies are necessarily household names. So let's start with just a quick introduction. Ty, you can go first, just a little bit about yourself and DWF. And maybe your strategic priorities vis-a-vis the goals, and then we can do the same with Victoria, and then we can keep moving.
Sure. Thanks, Steve, and great to be here. So my name is Ty Jones, Director of CSR and Engagement at DWF. We're a leading global provider of integrated legal and business services. So play an important role in helping businesses to grow and prosper. But as the only main market listed business in our sector, there's undoubtedly increasing stakeholder interest now in how we actually do business, where and who we do business with, and the level of our ambition and action to integrate the SDG benchmarks as part of our management of environmental, social, and governance risks across our business operations. I don't need to tell you that the pandemic has changed society and the business landscape, but the challenge and opportunity now is, as Steve has said, to respond really to the global call for businesses to build back better from COVID, in a way that visibly aligns to the UN's 2030 agenda by delivering on these SDG benchmarks. For us, investors have undoubtedly raised the stakes when it comes to responsible business behaviour, sustainable performance and disclosure. We know that businesses that prioritise sustainability are more resilient, they're more likely to attract a premium valuation on their shares, and are viewed as a better long-term investment. So transparent disclosure really is the way to go and on our SDG performance, to allow us really to distinguish ourselves between kind of leaders in this space and laggards in terms of responsible and sustainable long-term value creation. We're seeing every day now our clients increasingly asking us for our ESG related disclosures to obviously safeguard against their own risks, to protect their reputation, And we know that current and future employees are actively seeking out businesses that align with their values. So it's really incumbent on all of us to really require business to have a purpose as a force for good that contributes to more equal and sustainable society that's more resilient in the face of future challenges yet to come. Now, as a business, we're already taking action in support of the 10 principles of the Global Compact, but I think like many companies, we've previously set our ambitions based on what our peers and what our competitors do, and really kind of view that through a business as usual trajectory. Now, of course, we're in the decade for action, and we need to accelerate our contribution to the delivery of the SDGs, really as an integral and a deliberate part of our business strategy that is aligned to that UN 2030 agenda. So the 5 SDG benchmarks that we're prioritizing are science-based emissions reduction in line with the 1.5 pathway, simply because we know that only goals grounded in science is really what's required to achieve the SDGs. We're also prioritizing gender balance across all levels of management, and recently released our 5-year D&I diversity and inclusion strategy that focuses very much on ownership, belonging, representation, and driving kind of an inclusive culture across our global footprint. 100% of employees earning a living wage. We're currently only accredited in the UK. 0 waste to landfill, and 0 instances of bribery. Now, we will look at all 10, and they will factor in our ESG strategy that will be launched in the autumn. But in terms of prioritizing and messaging and creating that sense of shared responsibility, those are the 5 that will drive as far as day-to-day behavior is concerned.
Thank you, Ty. Great start. Victoria, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Victoria Hughes. I'm the Business Responsibility Director for Vinci Facilities. So we're part of a larger company in the UK called Vinci Construction UK, who's part of the large global group Vivek, which is French-owned construction and concessions company. We've been on the sustainability journey for quite a long time, I would say, and we recognise, similar to Ty, that the SDGs were not necessarily integrated effectively in our business to have that transformational change, and that was one of the real drivers for us of joining the Accelerator programme. We recognised we needed to do more. We needed to influence the whole of our value chain. So in our type of business, where we operate a range of facilities and retrofit activities, we rely heavily on our supply chain as well as our partner delivery function. So whilst we in our own business itself, we can make these changes, we have to cascade this cultural shift along the whole of the value chain down to our suppliers as well. We've been relatively successful in that. We recognise we need to make that more enforceable, like integrate it more into our ITTs and really get that embedded across the whole of the value chain. I think I mentioned previously I was getting some pull from customers, which is fantastic to see. So it's really great now that these SDGs and particularly some of the science-based elements Ty just mentioned are really being integrated into how we tender for our business. And, you know, construction, traditional mindset, you know, we go and build it, but actually we have a lot of impacts. And the built environment is one of those sectors which that the assets are here to stay. The assets are already here that we need to do. So what can we do with those assets to make them more sustainable, and how can we manage the facilities on behalf of our customers aligned to the SDGs themselves? In terms of our prioritisation, we've already been working on quite a few of them, similar to Ty. And throughout the Accelerator programme, there was various tools and techniques which the programme encouraged us to do that helped us really focus on a few which were applicable across the whole of Vinci Construction UK, not necessarily Vinci Facilities. So I joined the Accelerator programme with a partner who works in our building division. And you'd think that facilities management and building would have very different priorities, but we found actually we was quite well aligned. So collectively, we decided to focus particularly on 2 as a unified front, and that was mainly around the resource recovery and 0 waste to landfill. So we recognise that's where we can have a significant influence across our supply chain. And obviously, a lot of those negative societal and environmental impacts come from the products and materials which we purchase.
Thank you both. You've both really, I think, so critically demonstrated that business case, and that it's so great to hear that customers and other stakeholders are reinforcing, I suppose, the internal drive that you guys are leading with that extra support. Let's hear, if we might, some success stories on the journey so far. Is there anything that you could share, Ty, with how the progress is going, and anything you're particularly proud of? And maybe the flip side of that, are there any risks that you're seeing associated with setting these goals that you've also got an eye on? Thank you.
Yeah. I think definitely being a responsible business means committing to sustained change for the better. So I think the biggest achievement is probably the shift away from setting goals that we know we can achieve to the goals that we need to make the biggest impact in. So, you know, clearly commitment to net zero through science-based targets aligned to that 1.5 pathway. We've also launched our new purpose and formed an ESG leadership group as part of our governance structure. And I think one of the key things that the SDG Accelerator program helped us to do was to really kind of prioritize the importance of conducting a materiality exercise to really understand the array of topics facing a company like ours, which is really broad. And so deciding where to focus our efforts really required understanding of what our key stakeholders believe that we should be doing and how we should be doing that. So this enables us to better address those concerns and obviously allow us more constructive engagement and in the end better manage our business. So the materiality has been key in terms of seeing the breadth of stakeholder feedback on the things that are important to them and that they think we should be supporting. And running parallel to that has been the SDG Accelerator ambition program, which really kind of helps validate that feedback and gives us something to anchor our trajectory towards, because I think, you know, when we talked about that incremental improvement, and of course, you know, everybody's going to look at improvements incrementally. But I think, you know, climate change was an example of that. You know, our targets weren't grounded in science. We didn't have a particularly, you know, heavy carbon intensity. You know, we're not manufacturing products. We deliver services. So getting the business to really kind of get on board with such a kind of an ambitious carbon reduction you know, target program would only has happened because of the SDG ambition and really kind of being the catalyst for that focus. So I think, you know, certainly making sure that we do everything aligned through purpose now is a big achievement. Getting the infrastructure set up to be able to manage and have oversight of our progress towards these SDG benchmarks. And the materiality has been really key to that. And of course, you know, I mentioned the board will approve the new ESG strategy to scale our collective impact and ambition globally in the autumn, and we'll publish that again in the interest of transparency and also to be kind of part of that movement across the piece where we can actually share best practice and help each other.
Thanks, Ty. Victoria, successes and risks.
Successes and risks. I think one of our main successes of business is the cultural integration of sustainability throughout all levels of our business. We started our sustainability journey 10 years ago, and throughout that 10-year period, there's been a definite cultural shift change in how we're operating as a business. We have our top-level vision and mission strategy, which is aligned to a responsible business approach. And that's cascaded throughout all levels of the business, all the way down to the individual employee in their own personal development plans. So we have it all the way across the business. So no matter that the individual impact, what they're doing on their individual roles, they can see how that contributes towards the bigger picture. And that's been extremely advantageous to show that, as Ty said, a kind of purpose to my work. Why, you know, I come to work for a reason. What's my personal purpose? How is this aligned with the greater business vision, mission, and purpose? That's been really successful. And we we used the Good Life goals for that across the business. So obviously they're aligned to the SDGs, but really based on personal behaviour. And we've integrated this massive behavioural change focus in the business to understand that just thinking how you operate on your day-to-day elements, how could you change that to contribute to these bigger picture stories? I suppose some of the risks really is that we don't go fast enough. We're a large business. We have to, things within our own entity, within Vinci facilities, we can do very, very quickly. Things which require integration or approval from our parent organisation in France can slow things down considerably. And that's quite frustrating because we know we need to have these ambitious targets. We know we need to embed the KPIs. We know we need to get this massive transformational change as a business to contribute to the SDGs. And the risk is that we don't go quick enough. There is the desire to do that. Of course, there is with any organisation, as Ty alluded to. We recognise there's this business imperative to make it happen. But when you're in a massive, large, complex organisation, things sometimes do get slowed down and stuck in that clay layer. So I think you have to be quite resilient as a sustainability professional to keep saying, look, we need to do this. When are we going to make the decisions? And obviously that could potentially have a negative reputational impact on a business if you don't push things forward quick enough.
Yeah, I think if I could just add to that, Steve, I think the challenge and where we've had resistance is that there's often not come from the change itself, but I think from the loss, perceived or real. And a good example of that will be as we kind of transition back into the workplace, the impact of business travel and how that's managed in terms of then fulfilling our SDG ambition around that 1.5 pathway. Because again, I think if the business feels that something's been taken away from them or that their autonomy is being threatened, then that can be quite challenging, because ultimately you want to be able to join the dots in this. You want to make sure that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, that you don't have one part of the business that's going rogue when you're presenting a global picture. So I think that kind of the narrative around, I suppose, visualizing what the outcome's going to be has been a real kind of learning point for us, and not assuming that everybody will just intellectually get it, because I think most people do. It's common sense at the end of the day, but actually when you drive it through a personal lens and you feel as though you're going to have to behave differently or lose things as a result of that change, that's often the bit that you have to deal with, not necessarily the change itself. I hope that makes sense. So we're having discussions linked to people coming back to the office, and part of the decision making has to be about the frequency of travel, the carbon intensity of the method of travel used. And this is really the kind of the first time that we're making sure that any sort of messaging that we do is aligned, and everybody gets the sense of this is all in support of our purpose, and ultimately will help us deliver against those key SDG benchmarks.
I'm going to segue right off of that then to tools and resources. Has there anything that's stood out for you, anything that you've used and gotten particular value from as part of this SDG ambition journey? Victoria, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the SDG Accelerator program's been really thought out. There's at the end of it, you come out with this whole toolkit of resources to enable you to deliver it successfully in your business. As long as Ty said, people get it, it has to be integrated in how we do business, otherwise business won't succeed going forward. And I think there's been a few key standout modules. So right up front, we did this exercise called principled prioritization, which really helped you assess through a multiple lens which of the benchmark programs would be most important to you. And this looked at terms of what potentially would cost money, what you could make a profit from, what would you need to change from your business, how your stakeholders would view this, both positive and negative impacts. And it had you to consider, okay, out of all of these benchmarks, what is our key priorities? And at the end of that, it gave you a real focus of which ones to prioritize on. And I think that's probably where Ty and I have potentially identified these top 5 for whichever ones we're focusing on. Then I think further down the line, there were some other tools, particularly around goals and sub-goals and measuring KPIs. And I think really early on, the advice you gave us was to have a sustainability professional and a data person, somebody who understands data on the accelerator program. that advice was bang on, because you need both of those expertise in order to succeed on this SDG program and integrating that successfully within your business. So, you know, that whole data tools, where you're going to get the information from, are you capturing the right data? Is that going to have a positive or a negative impact in the business? Where are the potential knock-on effects elsewhere that you haven't necessarily realised? Then furthermore, it's looking at the SDGs as a whole. Where are you potentially having a negative effect on another SDG while you're trying to prioritise another one? So it's that data management and pulling all that together to really inform you and making the changes, and they're having the anticipated impacts that you was hoping it would have across your business. But I think overall it's a really fantastic program and taken quite a lot away from it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I really like the on-demand sessions initially, because the presentations kind of gave you the narrative in the most kind of concise and impactful way. So you weren't reinventing the wheel. And I found those really positive from an engagement perspective, to actually kind of repeat those messages and land the salient points. Yeah, to Victoria's point, the prioritization exercise was really useful. I also like the SDG value driver framework, which I thought was useful because it helped you to understand where supporting these goals can generate revenue, where you can use them to engage your people, where you can identify the risks to ensure you do no harm, and also ultimately where you can make cost savings because you have changed the business and the way you do things for the better. And I thought the crafting the pitch session was really useful as well. I think in terms of getting people to transition from awareness to understanding, and from that understanding then to convert to really kind of a permanent change in behaviour. So I think those were core elements that were really valuable to me.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think that's a theme that's come up a few times now, that culture change and getting the whole company engaged. Okay, let's go to our Q&A. We don't have a lot of time. Let me invite our audience to help me out in choosing which questions we're going to answer by having a look at the Q&A box and giving a thumbs up to the question that you're most interested in. At the moment, the first one is a clear leader, and I think probably in the interest of time, we'll just go to you, Ty, with that. And where can you have the biggest impact compared to manufacturers? I think everybody has an office, so even a manufacturer has got to be looking at that aspect of their business. And Victoria, likewise, even though you have other areas where you have a footprint, but maybe Ty, since you're pretty much 100% office and service oriented.
Yeah, I think certainly in terms of the gender balance at all levels of management and driving that inclusive culture. And because I think as a service provider, sometimes you do struggle more with the environmental engagement side. And I think because, we're a business that's driven, sort of digital first is the way we think. But, in some cases kind of, colleagues don't feel as though they can even control the light switch to have a meaningful impact on their environmental performance other than reducing their paper usage and thinking about the travel. So I think, the inclusion agenda, I think, was really key for us as a service provider. And again, back to the purpose, building that kind of inclusive culture, as well, pushing around the living wage. I think, again, because, we've become a global business through M&A activity. Where previously we were pretty much UK domiciled, and that was the scope of our ambition. So clearly now, having a global footprint, we've got to make sure that what we apply is global. And our biggest push is around behaviour and the type of behaviours that you want to see that drive then your level of ambition. So that's what we focus on through things like launching a code of conduct, a business and integrity ethics statement. Again, inclusive behaviours to the way we performance manage. So those are what we focused on. And I think the push around climate action now is such that any business, whatever your carbon intensity, can't ignore it. Because your kind of employees don't want you to ignore it. They want to know that you're your bit and actually helping them to do theirs. So I think they're all particularly relevant, but the 5 that we prioritize as a service provider are the ones where we think we can make the biggest impact given the nature of our business and geographical spread.
Thanks, Ty. Victoria, did you want to comment? And Ty, just before Ty sort of touched on the question from Chrysula about getting engagement further down the organization. Maybe you'd like to comment on that as well, Victoria, and how you got that buy-in.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry, you go first, Victoria.
I think in terms of buy-in, if I could take that one first, it's I think the accelerator program showed you as sustainability professionals, you can't achieve any of this alone. So, you know, there are various parts of the organization you will have to lean on to support you in moving and embedding the SDG ambition within your organization. And as long as you have that top level buy-in, which I think most organizations would have, otherwise you wouldn't be looking at the SDGs in the first place. You know, it's like, yes, we need to do it. It's this decade of action. We need to make a positive impact. What can we do to actually demonstrate in a transparent and robust manner we are doing the right things for our business? And I think understanding across the whole of your business where those priorities lie. So is it HR? Is it procurement? Would it be your supply chain? Would it be your team engagement, your academy, your learning and development function? Where do you need people on your side, by your side, to support you when you go forward? So, you know, you need those advocates with you. And I think recognizing those links are actually quite intuitive based on the SDGs themselves. So I think once you have those advocates by your side and you're really getting the integration of the SDGs and how you need to work on them collectively to make the most impact, I think getting people to buy in, because, you know, you're helping them achieve their goals as well. It's not just your goal. So I think just making that business case to them, albeit in an indirect way, that if you help me, this will help you too, is the best way forward to get that collective action.
Yeah, and I think from the bottom-up engagement, you know, one of the key things has been explaining to people why we're transitioning from, you know, our approach to responsible business has been driven through a CSR lens, and distinguishing the difference between, well, what is CSR, what is ESG, what are the SDGs, you know, that many acronyms, that I think you do have to take people through that journey. And I think the way we've done it between the transition from CSR to focusing on the SDG benchmark and our ESG strategy has been very much around kind of positioning the fact that, you know, CSR is often driven by motivated individuals, whereas when you take a more strategic kind of viewpoint on reporting against your ESG disclosures, and obviously the SDG benchmarks within that, you know, some of those are actually required now, either from a regulatory perspective or mandated from by your investors. Obviously, we're seeing things now like TCFD in terms of climate change disclosures. So actually, it impacts everybody, and I think that helps drive that engagement and retain it from the bottom up when they can see that there's no opt-out to responsible business. Everybody has to take shared responsibility. It's a collective ambition. Whereas I think previously in the world, it was all based on individuals' motivation. They wanted to do the right thing, but actually they might not have seen leaders mirroring the behaviours that, you know, we were espousing, or getting involved in, you know, community investment activities or really driving social values. So, so I think explaining that and the expectations now that impact everybody has been really engaging for them, because there is no opt-out button in this.
Great. Now let's move to Brazil. In Brazil, our network hosted an event where 8 CEOs came together to announce new ambitious goals they are setting now after participating in the SDG Ambition Accelerator. We have time here to hear from one of those companies. We'll hear from Adriana Warwick, who's the CEO of SPIC Brazil. It's a hydro and wind power generation company. The panel was moderated by journalist Eliana Trinidad. Let's tune in.
Vou chamar para a última parte aqui do nosso painel, que é combate à corrupção. A gente vai trazer aqui para falar desse tema a Adriana Warwick, é a CEO da SPIC Brasil, e eu queria que a Adriana começasse aqui a participação dela falando um pouco dessa outra meta trazida pela ambição pelos ODFs, bem alinhadas ao G do ESG, né? Do zero suborno, alinhada ao ODS 16 de paz, justiça país sem instituições eficazes. A Speak está assumindo o compromisso de trabalhar com essa meta. Como isso está sendo feito internamente? Olá,
Bom dia a todos, é um prazer estar aqui. A pandemia nos colocou todos, nos lembrou a todos que estamos todos no mesmo barco, não é? Só que alguns estão remando mais do que outros. Então, primeiro, eu gostaria de dizer que é uma alegria muito grande estar aqui com vocês, remando juntos para fazer essas transformações tão importantes. Eu creio que nós temos um desafio nessa ODS específica, e no caso da nossa empresa, que é um grupo global do tamanho do Brasil em termos elétricos, 160 gigas, 130 mil funcionários espalhados em 46 países. Então, a gente faz uma onda em uma rede muito importante pelo mundo afora. É um desafio de planejamento e de coordenação em um ambiente de negócios, especificamente no Brasil, muito complexo, em meio à pandemia, como falei, a maior crise hídrica dos últimos 90 e tantos anos, em um setor em transformação. Então, dado esse desafio de planejamento, a gente começou o nosso trabalho tornando público o nosso compromisso de princípios de integridade e de ética em todas as nossas relações, assinando, sendo signatários do Pacto Global da ONU e nos associando ao Instituto EROS. Desde 19, então praticamente 3 anos, a gente adota processos de governança superior e de gestão de riscos, e eu só vou citar os principais aqui, em função do nosso pouco tempo. Nós criamos alguns programas que me inspiram muito, e creio que inspiram a nossa comunidade estendida. Temos um programa de embaixadores de integridade, é a turma que multiplica quais são os nossos valores dentro da cultura e dentro da ética. Fundamos comitês, dentre eles o Comitê de Monitoramento Ambiental, o Comitê de Ética e Integridade, e muito importante também, especialmente no Brasil, é o desenvolvimento do Programa da Cadeia de Valor, em que a gente faz diligências estendidas em todos que se relacionam com a nossa empresa. Então, eu creio que assim nós estamos criando ondas muito positivas para os nossos compromissos de 30, sim, mas de imediato também.
E qual a importância do combate à corrupção para alcançarmos essa agenda, né? Você está falando que relacionamento com a cadeia de fornecedores, com governos, com a sociedade. Então, como é que esse ambiente todo anticorrupção pode ser favorável para a agenda?
Assim, a gestão corporativa e influência empresarial ativa é uma mola propulsora da agenda de 2030, como falava. Tem a questão do walk the talk, faça o certo, mas tem a questão também do talk the walk, influencie, inspire, contagie com o que é bom, o que é certo, o que é necessário para esse barco que todos estamos juntos, né? Então, nosso trabalho visa desenvolver projetos que identifiquem oportunidades de fortalecimento desses princípios de ética e de integridade. Então, tem muitos exemplos de programas, mas o nosso trabalho sim, sermos muito coerentes com o que acreditamos e como fazemos, mas também espalhar essa mensagem por onde quer que a gente esteja, por onde quer que a gente ande.
Great. Now, finally, let's turn to the Nordic region, where the local networks in Finland and Sweden recently hosted an event on how companies are working to align their business with the SDGs, featuring again companies that took part in the first round of the SDG Ambition Accelerator. We will hear now from Mira Olausson, who's the head of communication and sustainability at Salinity. It's a Swedish family-owned business that have been working with salt for nearly 200 years. She offers a call to action to companies who may not be sure how to get started on their SDG journey.
So we have the analyses, we have the goals, we have the reporting, and that should be it, right? That's great. But as everybody knows, and obviously the current situation that we have in the world, more needs to be done and can be done, and this on an individual perspective, companies and governments. And this is basically a really challenging part for everybody. And I think the funny thing is that these challenges are exactly what Ole was mentioning in the beginning. It's about setting goals, and it's really hard setting goals and finding what is going beyond what is easy and looking further than what you're already doing. The integration part is also really hard. I mean, you can find something that you want to do, but how do you actually get it to work in the day-to-day business? I mean, getting it into procedures in the production site. How do we have the plastic sorted in the right way? How do we get the energy used in the best way? It's all these questions. Then it's the monitoring of the progress. What is it that we should measure? How do we measure it? Do we actually have the systems available to be able to measure it? And then obviously the communication, which is a really also challenging part of this whole work. Partly internally, getting more employees involved and engaged and wanting to do more. And then also externally, how do we communicate to our customers in a simple and credible way? How do we talk with our suppliers? And how do we get more stakeholders involved, basically, without being too much of a, how do you say? God, I'm losing, I found the Swedish word, but I'll skip that. Anyway, these challenges can be helped out with these programs. And we joined, it was myself and our purchasing manager working together and really discussing these topics together internally and with ourselves, with our colleagues, and the other companies like Neste. And it was a really good way to look beyond what is done and how it should be done, and creating pathways. The benchmarks that were shown before, excellent ways of setting new goals and really breaking down into simple steps that can be adapted to our business. And what we're also doing is actually joining with RISE, which is the Research Institutes of Sweden, and finding circular opportunities there as well. So discussing, and this is also something that we're doing, several people, cross-functional within the company, and challenging current business models. The way we work today is maybe not what we're going to work with in the future, and that always has to be questioned. Getting started is really, I mean, like I said, I was really overwhelmed starting out, and I didn't know what to do when you have 17 goals and you have all these different ideas out there. But I think just getting started is really important, creating some kind of momentum, because one thing leads to another. And also, like I said, with the Global Compact, getting management on board, taking it on a strategic level, trying to get it into the operations, finding people within the organization that have the same passion that you have for sustainability and wanting it to develop. In our case, we have worked a lot, like I mentioned before, with certifications, ISO certifications, quality and environmental management systems. And these are really great ways to get started as well, because you have some kind of a process already. And we were also certified with ISO 22000 for food security, and GMP Plus for feed, and 28,000 for value chain security. There is a lot of information and structures already, so use it. You don't have to invent the wheel from the beginning. And lastly, there are so many fantastic sources of information and education and people willing to share. I mean, if you just talk about it and mention what your ambitions are, there is a lot of information available. Sometimes, you know, free webinars, these kind of meetings, events, use them and listen and talk. And I hope even our little presentation here has been useful.
Great. We're very thankful to Mira for that clear call to action. We do need all companies, those who are just starting out and those who are already quite advanced, to think really critically about the ways that their business can align with the level of ambition that the SDGs call for. It is clear that in order to deliver on the SDGs by 2030, we need to be more ambitious in our strategies. We need to go deeper in our implementation and integration, and we need to speed up our efforts. So we challenge you, the UN Global Compact, to respond to this call and join the SDG Ambition Accelerator to transform your sustainability commitments into concrete, meaningful action. Applications are open through September 30 on the Global Compact website. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the next session, which we're hosting in partnership with Peace One Day. This event marks the 20th anniversary of the UN's International Day of Peace. We will join now a live discussion with our CEO, Sanda Odhiambo, along with other top business leaders on how companies can contribute to world peace.